everyone. Welcome back to Gaming the System, the podcast where a handful of intersectional feminists examine gaming through a feminist lens. Today, Alex and I are continuing our series on God of War Ragnarok. We have both platinumed it, so there are no spoilers that have not already been thoroughly enjoyed by us. So if you haven't played it or finished it, turn off now and come back when you're ready to hear us dish about it. There are two things that I have on my mind, and I think we can hopefully lead to some discussions, both of them. First off, from the very start, the first thing that makes you go, Fenrir dying.
Yeah.
Fuck, that was
Oh,
devastating.
it was.
Straight away, you go, I didn't sign up for this.
No, we don't want dogs dying.
That's
No.
it's devastating.
Yeah.
And I playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Mm.
The only thing I thought, Fenrir is Loki's dog, his wolf.
Yeah.
And you go, but and they tied him up with a chain and trapped him in the underworld in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We go, well, but he's dead. He's a little wolf and he's dead. Oh, and sort of goes those sort of things, and then you go, and you sort of carry on with the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then you go to hell and you see the big dog there. And you go, well, hang on a minute. This is supposed to be Fenrir.
Was it called Gorn? I think in hell.
Gorn. I think
Gorn. Yes, that's it.
And it freeing it, and then it fucking goes around and go, oh, it hasn't got a soul to kill, and then he goes, oh, I've got an idea, and then stabs it in the head, and it runs off. And then they go and they find it cowering in that cave.
Yeah.
And he goes, Fen, is that you? And then it runs out and starts licking Atreus, and it's that is another fucking tears.
My most favourite thing during that scene was where Kratos and Atreus were having a serious discussion, and in the background all you can see is Fenrir just like nudging up closer with his big nose, and he's like, "Can I join in the conversation, please? I would like to hear. Please give me cuddles." It was so cute. I love it so much. I watched. They were releasing a series of behind-the-scenes videos in the aftermath of the release of Ragnarok. And obviously I waited until I'd finished to watch them all. And they had this whole thing about how they filmed like dogs and motion captured a dog on a table and its movements and things, and how they brought Fenrir to life digitally. And they had like a big stick with a big sort of nose thing on the end, so the actors playing Atreus and Kratos would know where Fenrir was in relation to them. And it was just so clever, and I loved it. It was amazing. I definitely recommend going and watching it if you can. So yeah, that was a really happy surprise.
Yes.
So I was very pleased when that happened. I was like, yay, we have a friendly giant dog who can run around with us. It's great.
It can tear holes in between the realms.
Yes, very useful skill.
And one of the best bits of the entire game is, when it's standing there just looking at them and that.
Yeah.
And Atreus explains, I think I got put his soul in my knife and I put it in, and look, it's Fen. And then Kratos looks at him and goes, sit. And he goes,
sit.
That's the best.
Yeah.
The best thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, it's so good. And then he's like, home. And then he's like, yep. Pop through the hole.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Yeah.
One thing that I have another like technical feat. I have no idea how they do. When there is a how their camera works and how you fight a massive giant enemy, because they had that in the first game
Mm,
with the
the dragon
dragon.
Raslian.
That's pretty big.
Yeah,
But then this, you had the wolves.
yeah, his
How do you get it
jaw.
right, and how
Yeah,
do you make it
that
look
fight, that
good?
boss battle, really reminded me of the dragon fight. Actually, I feel like they were using some similar attack patterns because it just seemed really familiar to me. I really enjoyed it. It was one of my best boss battles. I did it in one go. I was really proud of myself. I was like, yes. And then, of course, it comes back again later, um, which I also did in one go, but incidentally. The sense of achievement I got from doing that first time around was really nice feeling. And that's one of the great things. Another great thing about the game I mentioned in a previous episode, how the combat made me feel a lot more capable than incapable, and it's just a really nice feeling. I think we can again talk about this in another episode if you like, but there are a lot more accessibility options this time around in God of War Ragnarok, and those really helped me with combat as well. So props to them for adding those in. But yeah, sorry, I've lost my thread. I've been talking too much about other things.
It's how just awesome boss battles, massive
Mm,
boss battles,
mm.
and they. I've been playing one of the original series, and they just is the biggest. The God of War series is the apex of massive boss battles, and they just have clearly been. They're putting everything that they've learned into practice, into making the things as massive as they do in this game. But there's also the element of, it's not just, oh, look at this massive cool thing that you fight. There's always a really important reason for doing it,
Yeah,
no matter how big or small the boss fight may be. For example, the Needhog battle, that's awesome and weird
it's
and
so
cool,
so good. Yeah,
but you're doing it because Freya, you want to free Freya.
break the curse on Freya. Yes, yeah. Oh, I can't. Yeah, the way it tore the realms open with its claws, and you saw, and it was 3D. When it first comes out, I was literally like, "Are we watching this in 3D? What's happening? What's happened to my brain?" It's amazing. Hello.
um,
Mm,
the So yeah, that boss battles Fenrir. That's the sort of, you know that when you've had this massive boss battle, you're going to get something really impactful afterwards.
afterwards, yeah,
So that's what
yeah.
happened with Fenrir. That's what happened with Needhog.
You talk.
It's what happened with the Valkyrie Queen, with the last of those. I think they were barbarian lords or something.
The Berserkers, I think, yes.
Yeah, berserkers.
And
Yeah,
also, actually, Heimdall. We need to talk about Heimdall.
Heimdall, that
I,
was the second thing I wanted to
yeah,
talk about. Oh
yeah.
my god. He's the
Oh,
fucking best.
yeah.
He's the
You think
most
I
he's the
found
most
him
extra
very nice.
person I've ever
Yeah,
experienced in my
I,
life.
he's definitely the person I wanted to beat the most in a boss battle. But yeah, the characterization was definitely up there. Yeah, I took great pleasure in beating the tiger thing that he was riding, and then tried to figure out how to beat him. Like the amount of puzzling you had to do in that boss battle just to figure out how to hit him once uh, was quite a frustration, but we got there in the end. Then once I figured it out, I then died, obviously, because it took time. So I handed the controls over to my other half, who dutifully killed Heimdall. And yeah, it was. But it's so final, the moment when Kratos does it, you're like, is he going to? Is he not? Which way is it going to go? Because obviously there's such a high stakes moment with the prophecy from the Norns. We haven't talked about the Norns.
Mm.
Um, hanging in the balance and what it means for their story and what's going to happen. You're just so many things up in the air. I think you're left with more questions than answers after that battle. But even just the mechanics of fighting someone who cannot be hit because they're always one step ahead, and how they plan that out, like his animations, oh, so good, so good.
He's just every time I saw him, just think you extra just he just from the second you meet him
Yeah,
when
when
he's
you're climbing up the wall as Atreus, he grabs you. Yeah.
when he's got an apple and he's just or just he looks so bored
Mm,
all the time because he knows everything everyone's thinking, and just the fact that Atreus is climbing that wall that entire time and Heimdall is waiting for him at the
mm,
top. Just think, what does Heimdall sit up there the entire time? How did he know that he was climbing up there then? And
mm.
just how he is with everything.
Yeah, yeah. He reminded me of like a 90s boy band cut, like when someone from a 90s boy band, like just the hair. I think it like just sparked that in me for some reason, and it just added up to the whole impression of him being incredibly annoying. And yeah, but no, in an extra way, like you say, it's you love to hate him, I think, and that's one of the things I enjoyed so much about it. Is that even if you don't like a character, you can enjoy not liking them because it's so well written and so well performed. And again, there's so much mystery around him as well, and not knowing what he knows, trying to figure out like because obviously, can he read minds? I think he can, can't he? Or can
Sort of
he?
like he can just see what you're. It's not as like as specific and calculating as of being able to read everything you think. It's
Mm,
just he gets your impression.
right.
He
Yeah.
sees what. So he just sees, oh, you're about to attack me, and you're
Mm,
uncertain, and he's like Darren Brown,
yes. Yeah.
and
But
so he
yeah,
goes,
so much trickery there as well from that character. It's very good.
yeah,
Sorry,
and
Matt, you were going to say.
the yeah the like the boss battle, that
Mm,
final battle. I watched that a couple of times over the last few days, and Kratos gives him every chance
mm,
to go, just stop,
yeah.
and doesn't give in to listening to all of Heimdall's shit talk. The amount of shit he talks when he's fighting someone is just joyful.
Mm,
And then the first point when Kratos finally punches him, he's like, "Ah!" Oh.
yeah.
And
And
then
then you get the cut on the face that doesn't go away either. Something about cuts from people that don't go away in this game. But yeah.
Kratos stabs him through the arm.
Yeah. And his
And
arm gets cut off and he regrows it. I was quite shocked when he regrew it. But then you shouldn't really be because we're dealing with gods here. So it's not shouldn't be a surprise. But yes, so good.
he and details that I didn't remember is when Kratos stabs him in the arm, he says, "Stop, stop, stop," and asks them to stop.
Mm,
And Kratos does.
mm,
And then there's the best bit is when he is like that, and then he looks up and looks at him and goes, "What's going on in that empty head? You're going to spare me out of pity?" And you just go,
mm.
"Oh," and Kratos goes, "Leave it. Just let go." And Kratos blows his arm off.
Yeah.
It continues.
Wow. And even the build up to that fight, going and getting the Dropnir spear, was a like a whole other thing that you just don't expect. another weapon. I mean, there was a lot of speculation about it, I think, before the game came out. But the way that's done, going and visiting the mermaid, the Lady of the Lake, was again, and the whole thing with Brock not being able to be seen because his soul's not 100% there, and him realizing, oh, so much going on in every part of the story on so many different levels. So good.
Yeah,
Mm,
just that mermaid was
mm,
stunning.
it was
It's just
incredible.
another thing where that's like something that most developers would like go, oh, that's so cool and awesome, but we don't have the time to do it. It
Yeah,
felt like that was awesome, and
it just,
not
yeah.
not having any idea what from the second they go, oh, what about the drop near? There you go, ooh,
Mm.
and then he goes
What's
down.
that?
It follows Sindri down.
Yeah,
That was really weird.
yeah. I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, and then it was all dark, and he had to light it up again. Um, that was very cool. Yeah, I was going to say something. It just kind of shows with the mermaid, like the depth of the world that they've built is so much bigger than the first game, and the fact that they're just giving it like 5 minutes of screen time is like, okay, so this thing exists, but we're going to move on to this other
Yeah,
thing now. Yeah, it's like yeah. I often feel almost cheated that we don't have more time just looking at all these cool things and understanding them. But I'm sure um, everyone does appreciate even being able to see them for 5 minutes. Mm,
absolutely. The amount of detail that like in like the last few hours, I realised that if you dodge as Kratos in an area with mud, he gets mud on his head.
oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's cool.
So just all that. There's the detail in the massive things, and there's
Mm,
the detail in the smallest things as well.
yeah.
Um,
Mm,
yeah, it's just everything about Heimdall. It's just absolutely delicious. It was, and I've found myself thinking that him and Boulder have a very similar energy.
yes, yeah, I felt like the fight was quite similar in the way that they moved and things as well. Like, obviously, that's a physical comparison, but in terms of their attitude, like you say, they have a similar energy,
So,
definitely.
oh,
Yeah, like why am I having to deal with you? I'm so done. I'm so done with it.
yeah, yeah, that's so true because they are both trapped with an awareness that they can't escape,
Mm,
and so they are trapped in this world that they. I don't. I would like to know how Heimdall came to have the Bifrost eyes,
yeah,
and
yeah.
whether he chose it or. But
Mm,
it's just another thing where when you have something like that, it really isolates you
yeah,
because he can't. Neither of them could connect with other people,
no,
um, and I've really felt like um, you could have swapped Heimdall and Boulder's place in each game, and they could have had a it would have worked because he has that same. If imagine if Odin had sent him to go and
mm,
find them, that
yeah.
would have been interesting.
It is interesting when you think about the fact that they both have like this role that they're fulfilling for Odin, and they're just basically being both used by Odin, and they can't ever step out of that role. They don't have a choice, or at least they do, but the Odin will probably dispense with them pretty quickly if they decide they want to do anything different. Um, but they're just little pawns essentially in Odin's game. Um, and that must feel quite isolating. Certainly, I could definitely sense both of them were incredibly frustrated with
Mm.
life.
Yeah, that frustration and just fed up with other people
Mm,
and other people's bullshit. And I I'm thinking about this for now the 4 years since the part one came out. Do you think Odin knew how to cure Balder?
mm. I reckon he may well have done. Yeah, yeah. It's not out of the question. I don't think we could say definitely. Well, he definitely didn't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because obviously we know Odin's so tricky and manipulative that he could say one thing and mean completely another thing. So, but I think given his lack of care and admiration for the members of his family, he very well may have known there was a way to stop it, but didn't disclose it. Yeah.
Yeah, just think how what the devastating implications of it is if he didn't know.
Mm,
If he did know,
mm,
because he's the thing he says about Balder is yes, his mind was gone, which is true because
yeah.
Balder was 100 years of complete numbness drove him insane as it would anyone,
Mm,
and Odin just kept on using him for his skills, and it's his son.
yeah.
You'd think if he did know, then that's horrifying because he allowed his son to turn into this, and when he could have stopped his suffering at any time. You imagine the thing, how much Boulder must have begged him to help, and all the
Yeah.
suffering that he must have done. Because can you imagine the only thing you have is your anguish
Mm,
and that. So yeah, so if he did know, that's appalling because he was
mm,
using his son being tortured, and there's also the element that he would have been doing it to hurt Freya.
mm,
He knows that it's worse for her knowing that Balder's alive and hates her, just
yeah.
keeping that perpetual state of awfulness going. But
It's to
then,
his advantage, I think. That's the way he sees it. It's like he's always looking for control over people to have that be above them and like have that bargaining chip, that thing that he can use to his advantage. So I very much can see that taking place as part of his character.
yeah, and then so that would make 100% sense because he
Mm,
knows everything. His thirst for knowledge is that's the only thing he cares about. But then on the other side of if he didn't know, especially to start off with, imagine if it was your son and they said, "No, they, they put this curse on me, this horrible curse," and you know that she knows how to cure it, but she
mm,
won't tell me. Can going from Balder going to his father and saying, "She's done this horrible, awful thing to me, and she knows the answer, but she won't tell me. Can you help me either convince her to to tell you, or find a way yourself?" Someone with Odin's power would do whatever it took to do that. If it had happened to him,
mm,
there's nothing that he wouldn't be able to do if he puts his mind to it. So I think on both ends of it is that if he didn't know, then it means that he just didn't care about Boulder. He didn't.
Mm.
He didn't, and he knew that he would gain more if Boulder stays the way he was. But I think the answer may be, talking it through from both sides, is at the start he probably didn't know,
Mm.
and then because he can't stand not knowing
Yeah.
things, he
Yeah.
needs to know everything. I expect that he found out about what Freya had done, very quickly worked out what the cure would have been, and then kept it and didn't tell Balder.
Mm. Yeah.
Which is, I
I
think
think
that's
you're right.
the worst of all
Mm.
possibilities.
Mhm. Indeed.